is April 22nd and it's Earth Day. I always find it so interesting that we have like a day for the Earth rather than thinking about the Earth all of the time. I imagine that you might feel kind of overwhelmed and even a little paralyzed when you think about what's going on with climate change and ecological collapse and all of that, right? I mean, it's pretty big, right? I know for me, sometimes I do feel a bit like a deer in headlights too. It's like, oh my gosh, like what are we going to do? And then we turn away and decide to focus on other things. After all, we have a gazillion things to distract ourselves with these days, don't we? I was just listening to an interview with Jamie Quince Starkey of Down to Earth Derby on the Accidental Gods podcast that Manda Scott does. Some of you have probably seen some of my stuff with Manda. And he was talking about how a few years ago, he felt discouraged himself, and he noticed the people around him were kind of like, well, why should we bother to try to do anything? The issues are too big. And so, let's just give it up and go to the pub, right? So he went into his garden, and he was there for 3 or 4 hours, which he said, with his hands in the soil. And he realized that what we need is to be more connected to the land. We need to be connected to the soil, and that is the thing that is at the base that's undermining us so much. And so he started out with a small idea, and this is a guy who had a full-time job, 2 small kids, and a wife, and he started small with creating urban gardens. And he did this in the town of Derby, which is in England. And he talked about how slowly over time, more and more people started to get involved in this. They managed to get a plot, and that as people came and worked in the garden side by side, that they started to open up to each other, that they were able to share some of the challenges that were going on in their lives where they wouldn't normally do that otherwise. But there was something, kind of medicine that occurred when people were working in this garden together. Well, this project that he has done has now blossomed. It's become quite large, so big that he even was able to connect with somebody who secured a sponsorship for him and for the project from Rolls-Royce for a year at least. And so now he's able to do this full time. And there are hundreds of people who are involved in this. And now the Down to Earth Derby in Devon is becoming a blueprint for a world-class nature-based urban regeneration project. And the idea is that in the city, we can do nature-based regeneration, which I think is super important, right? It's that not everybody's going to move to the country. Some people are always going to live in the city. They maybe love aspects of the city, but how can we make it more of a green space? And how can we make it more available for people to be engaging with gardens, with growing food, and even more importantly, with each other while they're doing that? And that this is where the regeneration comes. Because of the history of colonialism that's been going on for thousands of years now, most of us are living in places that are very different from where our forebears were. We're uprooted. We don't have a relationship to the land. Here in the United States, the indigenous people who would have a longer term traditional relationship to the land have a very vexed and complicated relationship because of the history of colonialism and of their inability legally still to have sovereignty over their land. So it's a big topic, okay? And so I want to just encourage you, as we're moving into Earth Day, to be considering for yourself what could be your piece to both connect to the land that you live in, and who were the indigenous people there, who may still be there wherever you are in the world, and then also to be checking in to see what kind of a project you might want to engage in. Our connection with the natural world is such a core part of who we are that I have named it as part of the pillar number 3 of feminine sovereignty, which is vitality, embodiment, and our connection with the natural world, because our bodies are the natural world. We're not actually separate. Our bodies are made of the earth. Literally, we are bags of water and minerals. basically, and bacteria, right? And so that are all aspects of the natural world. And yet we've been so programmed to believe that we are separate from, and we can therefore dominate and extract from the natural world, that we don't realize that we're actually doing the same to ourselves, and we're harming ourselves as well. So in pillar number 3 of feminine sovereignty, we are learning to revitalize that aspect of who we are and to find our ways to get rooted again into our connection to the earth and to the land that we live on, to the people who have lived there traditionally over generations, to what the ecosystem is like in that environment. You know, if there is a thriving ecosystem, things like that. We can find this located in the human design chart in the channel 515. That's typically where we put it, because it is about our relationship to the cycles of the natural world and to our love of humanity and our compassion for our world. It is collective circuitry. It's in the pattern circuit. So it does have to do with the big cycles, has to do with the cycle of the earth and the moon and the sun and of all of the planets, which of course is what human design is based in, is in the fractal of all of these different orbits that are constantly influencing us energetically. And this channel 515 connects the sacral center to the G center. So it's bringing primary life force energy from the sacral up into the G, which is the heart, right? It's fueling the heart. So we're inviting our life force energy to fuel our heart. And then from there, it's going to go up from the G center up into the throat through collaboration and what I call the New World Leader, or could be democratic leadership. And so in the biggest vision that we have in the human design system for our New World Leadership in collective circuitry, it is coming in from collaboration, but it's coming from compassion. It's coming from our connection to and our reverence for the natural world. It's coming from our love and our lovability and our identity as human beings that are the children of the earth, and recognizing that we are not some disembodied brains cruising around, where in fact we are actually beings of the earth that we emerge from and that we'll go back into even as our spirit continues on through its soul's journey. Now that kind of collective circuitry, right, is more left brain, and it's more analytical and more focused, okay, because it's left brain energy. But the other collective circuitry is in the sensing circuit, and it's right brain energy. And right brain energy is very connected to the natural world and to everything, really, because it has a much more spatial and abstract, very unboundaried way of relating to everything around us. And so the right brain energy that goes along the left side of the body, it's sensing, it's our senses, it's how we connect to our environment and the things that are going on around us. And it's very embodied. We experience through the physical body and all of the senses that the physical body brings us, and the creativity and the imagination that we get through the right brain, where we're connected through superconsciousness. So where the other is a bit more left brain, a little bit more analytical and more focal, the other is more peripheral, it's more expanded, it's more spatial. And when you put those two together, this is the kind of big circuitry that runs through the human design chart that has to do with the big things, right? So if we're looking at governments, for example, if we're thinking about Earth Day and we're wanting to influence governments, like how do we do that? Well, we're going to do it through that collective circuitry, at least in part. So I want to share a story with you also from the Accidental Gods podcast of Katarina Blair, who lives in Durango, Colorado. And she's done a number of really great projects, but the one I want to tell you about today has to do with how she approached her city council and said that she and her organization that she had started wanted to turn all of their city parks into organic. Like they wanted to stop using any chemical pesticides or fertilizers or anything like that. And how she was able to influence the city to allow them, they gave them one park initially, and they gave them a year to work on it. And they had such great results that they started to be able to negotiate to be able to do this in more other parks also in the city and around the city. Now they had a particular particular challenge because there are also a lot of golf courses, and the golf courses really still want to be able to use all of their chemical products because golf courses, have a certain standard for how they want their grass to be, which is not necessarily what we think of in around city parks, right? And what we might want in our park. But she was able to gather a group of people together and to negotiate for this, and then to navigate the complexity of this city system and to influence what's happening with city government. And so this is something that an individual can do, just like I was talking about with Jamie, where he had this idea for the earth-based rejuvenation project in the city that he was in. And, these projects just start with an individual. They don't start from a big organization usually. It's because one person has a vision of what's possible. And so my suggestion to you is to really be digging into what is something that matters to you, whether that is city parks or whether it's gardening or whether it has something to do with a certain animal that maybe is in the environment that you're in, or maybe it has to do with forests, or maybe it has to do with, sewage waste plant that's nearby. I mean, there's so many different places that you can get involved. And the thing I want you to know is that all you have to do is your next step. You do not have to take on the whole. You just need to know what your part is and to pursue that, and then to see who else might want to partner with you in that. Because if every one of us, or even if some of us really did this on a regular basis, we could make a really big impact. I want to share something with you that a friend of mine told me about and invited me into, and I had never done it before. But the result of this is that our household has almost zero garbage. Like there's almost nothing that goes into our garbage can. Between recycling and composting and then doing this with our plastic, we've reduced what we put into landfill to almost zero. So let me show you what it is. So you have a plastic container. Now this is the last thing I had olive oil in, okay? And I am going to fill this with plastic. So here's something, actually here's a simple one. So this was just like the top of, I think that was my sour cream. I don't remember, but it was the top of something like that. And I'm just going to stuff that in here. Okay. You would be amazed at how much plastic I can get into one of these. So this is what my avocados came in last. And I'm just going to stuff this in here like this. Sometimes I have to cut it. I think the next piece I'm going to have to cut to be able to get it in there. This one I might not have to cut. No. This is what my last thing of bacon came in, because I don't know about you, but I have not been able to eliminate bringing plastic into my house. I wish that I could, but still so many things are sold with plastic. That's obviously going to be something we're going to need to do next, but I just cut that up and I'm going to put it in here. So you're probably wondering, okay, Maggie, well, that's cool. So you're doing that with your plastic, but then what do you do with that bottle? So I am fortunate is that I have a friend who actually builds with these, okay? And this is starting to be a trend that people are doing in kind of green building, especially if they're doing straw bale, where they can put these into the walls, right? So you fill these up, all of these plastic containers, and you'd be amazed about how much you can get in here. I put all kinds of things in here. I put in those little twist ties that my produce comes with, right? They're all wrapped up with twist ties. I put in larger containers. It wouldn't fit in this one, but in larger containers, I keep the tops that I have for so many things, and I put the tops in the larger containers and then fill them up. So look at all that plastic I just put in here, and it didn't even begin to fill this thing up. So you'd be amazed at how much plastic I can fit into one of these. So the idea here is I fill this completely up until I can't get any more in there. And then they use these as building material. And I talked to a friend I have who lives in Detroit. And I asked her, I'm like, do you guys know about that? Because they're doing a lot of really interesting rebuilding in the city of Detroit right now. And she goes, oh yeah, I've been hearing about that. So I will see if I can get any other resources about where you might be able to send these when you do them. But this is an example of just in our household, we have reduced our garbage to almost nothing. There are only a few things that I can't do this with. Everything else can be recycled or composted. And I literally have like not even this much garbage every week as a result. So that may or may not be something you want to do, but I'm sure that there is something that you can do. And so in the human design system, we do not have toxic waste. We do not have multinational capitalism. We do not have nuclear war or even war between nation states. We do not have nuclear power plants. Okay, none of that exists in the human design chart. And everything that's in collective circuitry is really of a higher vibration than that. And so for me, the way that I think about this is, how are we going to evolve ourselves to be more in relation to the whole human design chart and to eliminate the things that are not on there? Okay. Unless they are starting to come out of our visionary capacity for what's new and what's possible. Okay. But there's so many things that we have created that are not on the chart that are the result of this history of colonialism that we've been with for thousands of years now. I kind of always blame it on the Romans, but of course it was going on before the Romans too, but they were particularly good at proliferating it. And there's so much of the Roman mentality that is still part of our world today because it is an imperial mentality and it is one about our relationship to the earth. And so that is a lot of what we're unpacking here. So my invitation to you is to go ahead and, lean into that pillar number 3 of feminine sovereignty, the relationship between your own personal vitality and your own embodiment and the vitality and the well-being of the earth, and to know that they are not actually separate and that it's in the right brain sensing circuit of the human design chart that we can tap into knowing that in a really, really kind of deep way inside of ourselves. And then to challenge ourselves to go into pillar 8 of feminine sovereignty, which is a benevolent attitude and approach to all of life. So it's not just our own families. It's not even just humanity. It's all of life. It's all of our companion species. It's our ecosystems. And it is beautiful Gaia herself, the great consciousness that has created this planet and keeps it alive and keeps providing a home for us, even though we haven't been treating it very well. And so how do we grow ourselves into the feminine sovereign stewards who are capable of really taking care of our planet and cleaning up the messes that we've made and expanding ourselves to recognize that we are part of one world and that whatever is happening on the planet is happening to us as well. So this is the invitation that you have, and especially right now, the sun is going to move into the gate 27 on Earth Day, which is about accountability, responsibility and accountability. And the Earth is going to move into the gate 28, which could be struggle and victimhood. And our opportunity is to move out of a victim state into a more empowered state to say that we are the change makers. We are on the leading edge of consciousness. We are able to meet challenge and turn it into an opportunity and to use all of our faculties to be receiving divine guidance to solve the issues that we have today. And just remember, all you need to do is your thing. You don't need to be concerned about everything, okay? You just need to do your thing and to find others that you can partner with. So I really encourage you to do that especially on Earth Day and during these days that are coming up, and make it something that is part of your life. Like this, this took us a while to get up to speed with, but now this is just something that I do in my kitchen, every day, because I've got plastic coming in, a lot of the time. Although I tell you, I don't really pick up new plastic bags anymore because I use them so much that, and they come in packaging. And so I never even, pull a plastic bag out of the grocery store anymore. Okay. So you are a vital part of the change, and you matter, and every effort that you make to care about our planet and all of our companion species will make a difference. All right. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.